Captain Lee Daeho stood at the observation deck of the monitoring station and watched the twin suns of Kepler 442b paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The morning shift had just begun, and the sounds of the colony waking up drifted through the open windows. Children laughed as they ran to school, while farmers prepared for another day in the fields. This was home now, and had been for the past 15 years since he retired from active service. The colony of New Harmony stretched out below him like a peaceful painting. Green fields of modified wheat swayed in the gentle breeze, while the crystal-clear rivers that fed the settlement sparkled in the sunlight. Housing clusters dotted the landscape in organized patterns, and each family had enough space to live comfortably. The architecture was simple but beautiful, with clean lines and natural materials that blended perfectly with the environment. Daeho smiled as he remembered his first day here. He had been so tired of war and conflict that the thought of spending his remaining years in such tranquility seemed like a dream. The Great Reconciliation Wars had ended over 200 years ago, but the memories of those dark times still haunted the older generation. His grandfather used to tell stories about the massive fleets and terrible weapons that humans once wielded across the galaxy, but those days seemed like ancient history now. Dr. Park Yoonji entered the observation room carrying 2 cups of fresh coffee. She was the chief communications officer for the colony and had become one of Daeho's closest friends over the years. Her expertise in alien languages had helped establish trade relationships with dozens of species, and her gentle nature made her perfect for diplomatic work. "Another quiet morning," she said as she handed him a cup. "The Zalarian traders are coming next week with their textile shipments, and the Morgani delegation wants to discuss expanding the cultural exchange program." Daeho nodded and took a sip of the warm coffee. The blend was made from beans grown in their own greenhouses and had a rich, earthy flavor that reminded him why he loved this place so much. "Any word from the outer colonies?" he asked. "All routine reports," Yoonji replied. The Henderson settlement finished their harvest ahead of schedule, and the research station on Tau Ceti is making good progress on their atmospheric studies. Everything seems normal. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the colony come to life. Transport pods moved smoothly along the elevated tracks, carrying workers to their various assignments. The manufacturing centers hummed quietly as they produced goods for trade with other worlds. Everything was efficient and peaceful, and exactly the way human civilization had evolved over the past 2 centuries. Engineer Kim Tae-min appeared in the doorway, looking slightly out of breath. He was young and enthusiastic, and took his job maintaining the colony's infrastructure very seriously. "Captain Lee," he said, "I'm getting some strange readings from the deep-level sensors." Daeho turned to face him with a slight frown. "What kind of readings?" "Power fluctuations in sectors 7 through 12. Tae-min explained while checking his portable scanner. "It's probably just old equipment cycling through maintenance routines, but I thought you should know." The mention of the deep levels made both Daeho and Yoonji exchange glances. Most colonists knew there were older structures beneath New Harmony, but few people ever thought about them. The original survey teams had found the ruins of some ancient facility when they first arrived, but it had been declared inactive and sealed off for safety reasons. "Have you told Elder Choi about this?" Daeho asked. Tae-min shook his head. "She's in meditation this morning, but I can check with her later if you want." Elder Choi Bo-Ram was one of the few remaining survivors from the war years and served as the colony's historical advisor. She was in her 90s now, but her mind was still sharp, and she often shared stories about the old days with anyone willing to listen. Most people found her tales about massive space battles and planet-destroying weapons to be entertaining fiction, but Daeho had always suspected there was more truth in them than most people realized. The morning continued with its usual routine. Daeho reviewed supply requests and approved maintenance schedules, while Yoonji handled communications with the various alien trading partners. The galactic community had welcomed humanity with open arms once they demonstrated their commitment to peaceful coexistence, and now humans were considered reliable and trustworthy members of the coalition. Around midday, a Morgani merchant ship arrived carrying a cargo of rare minerals and exotic fruits. The Morgani were a tall, graceful species with silver skin and large, expressive eyes. Captain Velthar had been trading with New Harmony for over 5 years and had become something of a friend to the human colonists. "Greetings, Captain Lee." Velthar said as he stepped off his ship. "I bring wonderful treasures from the inner worlds." And news from across the galaxy. Deho welcomed the alien trader warmly, and they walked together toward the commercial district. The Morgani always enjoyed sharing gossip and stories from their travels, and Deho found their perspectives on galactic affairs quite interesting. "Have you heard about the troubles in the Outer Rim?" Velthar asked as they inspected his cargo. "Some of the trading posts have gone silent in recent weeks. Mechanical failures." Deho suggested. Velthar's large eyes seemed to grow even larger as he shook his head. "No one knows for certain, but there are rumors of a new species expanding aggressively through that region. The Zalarians are calling them the Vathis and say they consume everything in their path." Yunji joined them and listened carefully to the merchant's words. "Have you seen any evidence of this yourself?" she asked. "Only empty space where colonies used to be," Velthar replied. "The communication networks in that sector have been experiencing strange interference patterns as well. Many traders are avoiding the area completely." The conversation continued for another hour as they completed the trade negotiations. Velthar's ship departed in the afternoon, carrying a cargo of human-grown food products and leaving behind valuable minerals that would help improve the colony's technology. That evening, Deho found Elder Choi sitting in her garden watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. She was a small woman with silver hair and bright, intelligent eyes that seemed to see far more than most people realized. Her garden was filled with plants from Earth that she had carefully cultivated over the decades. "You look troubled, young Captain," she said without turning to face him. Ho sat down on the bench beside her and told her about the strange sensor readings and the merchant's stories about missing colonies. Elder Choi listened carefully without interrupting, and her expression grew more serious as he spoke. "The deep levels are stirring," she said quietly when he finished. "I felt it this morning during my meditation. Something is waking up down there." "What exactly is down there?" Deho asked. Elder Choi was quiet for a long moment as she studied the stars above them. "Ghosts of our past," she finally said. "Things we built when we were different than we are now. Things we hoped would never be needed again." She stood up slowly and walked to a small shed at the back of her garden. From inside, she retrieved an old metal box that looked like it had seen better days. The surface was scratched and dented, but the lock mechanism still functioned perfectly. "There are protocols," she said as she opened the box. "Emergency procedures that were established during the war years. They were designed to activate automatically if certain conditions were met." Inside the box were several data crystals and what appeared to be an ancient communication device. The technology looked far more advanced than anything currently used in the colony, but it also seemed somehow familiar to Deho. "What kind of conditions?" he asked. Elder Choi picked up one of the crystals and held it up to catch the light from the nearest building. "Distress calls on specific frequencies, threats to human colonies, the kind of situations that required immediate and overwhelming response." She handed him the crystal, and their eyes met in the dim light. "If those stories about the Outer Rim are true, then someone may need our help. And if someone needs our help, then the sleeping giants may wake up whether we want them to or not." Deho took the crystal and felt its weight in his palm. It was heavier than it looked and seemed to pulse with some kind of internal energy. "What are you asking me to do?" "Be ready," Elder Choi said simply. "Because if the old protocols activate, then everything is going to change very quickly. The galaxy thinks they know what humans are capable of, but they have only seen us at peace. They have never seen what we become when we have no choice but to fight." That night, Deho lay awake in his quarters thinking about the Elder's words. Through his window, he could see the peaceful colony sleeping under the starlight, and it was hard to imagine that anything could threaten this tranquil existence. But somewhere deep beneath his feet, ancient machinery was beginning to stir, and distant colonies were disappearing into the darkness of space. The age of peace might be coming to an end, and humanity would soon remember what it meant to be truly dangerous. The emergency alarm that woke Lieutenant Commander Yun Hai-wan at 3 in the morning was unlike anything she had heard before. It was not the standard colony alert, but something deeper and more urgent that seemed to come from the very foundations of the building. She rolled out of bed and quickly dressed in her communications uniform before rushing to the central monitoring station. The communications center was already buzzing with activity when she arrived. Dr. Park Yoon-ji stood at the main console with a confused expression on her face, while several technicians worked frantically at their stations. Captain Lee Dae-ho entered moments later looking as bewildered as everyone else. "What's the situation?" he asked. Hae-won moved to her primary workstation and began analyzing the incoming signals. "We're receiving a transmission on frequency 77 Alpha, she reported. "That channel has been dead for over 200 years, 77 Alpha, Yoon-ji repeated. "That's an old military frequency from the war period. No one has used those channels since the Great Reconciliation." The main speakers crackled to life, and a desperate human voice filled the room. The signal was weak and distorted, but the words were clear enough to understand. "This is colony ship New Seoul calling any human military vessel. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Repeat, we are under attack. 50,000 civilians aboard, requesting immediate assistance." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the meaning of those words. A human colony ship with 50,000 people was under attack somewhere in space, and they were calling for help on frequencies that had not been used for centuries. Dae-ho moved to the central display screen. "Can you get a location on that signal?" Hae-won's fingers flew across her console as she worked to trace the transmission back to its source. "The signal is coming from the Vega sector," she said. "Distance approximately 847 light years. 847 light years, Yoon-ji whispered. "That's far beyond the established colonies. What would a human ship be doing out there?" The distress call repeated every few minutes, and each transmission carried more urgency than the last. Background sounds of explosions and weapons fire could be heard, along with shouted orders and the cries of frightened civilians. Whoever was attacking the New Seoul was not interested in negotiation or surrender. Civilian Han Woo-jin arrived at the communications center carrying an armload of old books and data files. He was the colony's historian and spent most of his time studying records from humanity's past. His specialty was the pre-peace period, and he knew more about the war years than anyone except Elder Choi. "I heard the emergency alert," he said breathlessly. "What's happening?" Dae-ho quickly explained the situation while Woo-jin listened with growing alarm. When the captain finished speaking, the historian immediately began searching through his files. 77 Alpha was designated as an emergency military frequency, Woo-jin said as he pulled out a thick manual. "According to these records, any distress call transmitted on this channel would automatically trigger certain defense protocols." "What kind of protocols?" Yoon-ji asked Woo-jin, flipped through several pages before finding the section he was looking for. "Emergency Response Protocol Delta 9. It's designed to activate dormant military systems and recall reserve personnel to active duty in response to threats against human colonies." The implications of his words hit everyone at the same time. If the old protocols were still functional, then the distress call from New Seoul might have already triggered responses that no one in the current generation understood or could control. Elder Choi entered the communications center moving faster than anyone had seen her move in years. Her usually calm demeanor was replaced by an expression of grim determination that reminded everyone that she had lived through humanity's darkest period. "How long ago did the transmission begin?" she asked without preamble. "Approximately 47 minutes, Hae-won replied. Elder Choi nodded grimly. "Then it has already started. The sleeping giants are waking up." As if summoned by her words, a new alarm began sounding throughout the colony. This one was even deeper and more ominous than the first and seemed to come from far beneath the surface of the planet. The floor vibrated slightly, and dust fell from the ceiling as something massive stirred in the depths below. Taemin burst into the room carrying his scanner and a confused expression. "Captain, the power readings from the deep levels are off the charts," he reported. "Whatever is down there is drawing enormous amounts of energy. We need to contact the Galactic Coalition," Yoon-ji suggested. "They have faster ships and more resources to mount a rescue operation." Elder Choi shook her head firmly. "The Coalition response time to the Vega sector would be at least 3 months. The New Seoul has hours at most. Then what do we do?" Dae-ho asked before Elder Choi could answer. A new voice filled the communications center. It was crisp and precise, with the unmistakable tone of military authority. "Colonial Authority New Harmony, this is Admiral Kong Soo-jin requesting immediate status report." Everyone in the room froze. Admiral Kong Soo-jin had been one of the most respected fleet commanders during the war years, but she had been placed in cryogenic preservation over 2 centuries ago. There was no way she could be speaking to them unless something extraordinary was happening. Elder Choi stepped forward and activated the response channel. "Admiral, this is Elder Choi Boram. We have received a distress call from colony ship New Seoul in the Vega sector. Unknown hostiles are attacking 50,000 civilians." "Understood, Elder Choi," came the reply. "Emergency Response Protocol Delta 9 is now active. All sleeping assets are being brought online. Estimated time to full operational status is 72 hours. The communications center erupted in confused conversations as everyone tried to understand what they were hearing. Sleeping assets and operational status implied that there was some kind of hidden military infrastructure that had been dormant for centuries but was now coming back to life. Daeho activated his command channel. "Admiral, what sleeping assets are you referring to?" There was a brief pause before Admiral Kang responded. "Captain, you are currently positioned above Installation Omega-7. Primary functions include fleet command and control automated shipyard facilities and strategic weapons storage. Similar installations exist beneath all major human colonies." The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. New Harmony had been built directly on top of a massive military complex that no one in the current generation knew existed. The peaceful farming community they called home was actually the surface layer of what appeared to be a formidable war machine. Wu Jin was frantically searching through his historical records. "Here," he said, pointing to a classified document. "Project Deep Root, established during the final years of the war as a contingency plan in case humanity ever faced an existential threat again." "What exactly does Project Deep Root involve, Yunji?" asked Wu Jin, read from the document with a voice full of disbelief. "Underground military installations beneath every human colony, automated production facilities capable of building entire fleets, cryogenic preservation of military personnel and artificial intelligence systems programmed to coordinate defense responses." The distress call from New Seoul continued to broadcast its desperate plea for help, while the deep levels of New Harmony hummed with increasing activity. Through the windows of the communications center, the colonists could see other buildings beginning to show signs of unusual energy patterns as hidden systems came online. Admiral Kang's voice returned to the speakers. "All personnel are advised that automatic systems are now manufacturing a rescue fleet. Launch window opens in 68 hours. Colonial leadership should prepare for immediate military governance transition." "Military governance transition," Daeho repeated. "What does that mean?" Elder Choi answered with the weight of experience in her voice. "It means that for the first time in over 2 centuries, humanity is going to war again. And when humans go to war, the galaxy remembers why they learned to fear us in the first place." The communications center fell silent except for the ongoing distress call and the deep rumbling from beneath their feet. Everyone understood that they were witnessing the end of an era. The age of peaceful human civilization was about to give way to something far more dangerous and powerful. Hae-won continued monitoring the distress signal while trying to gather more information about the attackers. "The New Seoul is reporting that the hostile ships are organic in nature and seem to be consuming parts of their vessel." "Consuming?" Eunji asked with horror. "That's what they're saying," Hae-won confirmed. "The attack pattern suggests the hostiles are not interested in capture or negotiation. They appear to be systematically devouring the colony ship." Wu Jin found another section in his historical files. "There are references here to theoretical alien species that posed existential threats to all organic life. The military planners who designed Project Deep Root were preparing for the possibility of facing something like this. The implications were becoming clear. Somewhere in the Vega sector, an unknown alien species was attacking a human colony ship with the apparent intent of consuming it completely. The distress call had triggered ancient protocols that were now bringing humanity's hidden war machine back to life after 2 centuries of dormancy. The ground beneath New Harmony began to split open at exactly 0600 hours on the 3rd day after the distress call. Captain Lee Dae-ho watched from the observation deck as massive sections of what he had thought was solid Earth slowly separated to reveal gleaming metal structures hidden far below. The sound was like nothing he had ever heard before, as ancient machinery came to life with a deep mechanical roar that shook every building in the colony. Engineer Kim Tae-min stood beside him, with his scanner displaying readings that should have been impossible. "Captain, the power output from the underground facility is equivalent to a small star," he reported with disbelief in his voice. "Whatever is down there, it's bigger than our entire colony." Dr. Park Yoon-ji joined them carrying the latest reports from the other human settlements. "Every colony is reporting the same thing," she said. "Henderson Colony says the ground opened up to reveal a massive shipyard. The research station on Tau Ceti is sitting on top of what appears to be a weapons manufacturing center. It's happening everywhere." The transformation of their peaceful world into something unrecognizable continued throughout the morning. Hidden lift platforms rose from the depths, carrying structures that defied understanding. Automated assembly lines began producing objects that looked like components for starships, but were larger and more advanced than anything in current use. Admiral Kang Soo-jin materialized in the communications center as a holographic projection at exactly 0800 hours. She appeared to be in her 50s, with short gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Her uniform was from the war period, but looked freshly pressed as if she had just stepped out of a parade inspection. "Colonial Authority. New Harmony. This is Admiral Kang reporting full activation status," she announced. "All primary systems are online and operational. Shipyard facilities are producing vessels at maximum efficiency." Daeho stepped forward to address the hologram. "Admiral, what exactly are you building down there?" "A rescue fleet appropriate to the threat level, Captain Lee," came the reply. Long-range reconnaissance indicates that the hostile force attacking colony ship New Seoul represents a species previously unknown to our databases. Initial analysis suggests they are a consuming type with complete resource absorption capabilities. Elder Choi entered the communications center looking more alert and focused than she had in years. The emergency seemed to have awakened something in her that had been dormant for decades. "Admiral, what is our estimated response capability?" Admiral Kang's image flickered slightly as she accessed internal data systems. "Current production schedule. Calls for completion of primary response fleet in 36 hours. Fleet composition includes 12 heavy cruisers, 48 escort vessels, and support craft. Estimated travel time to target location is 14 hours using enhanced quantum tunnel drives." The numbers were staggering. In less than 2 days, the hidden facility beneath New Harmony was going to produce an entire fleet of advanced warships and deliver them to a location nearly 900 light-years away. The technology required to accomplish such a feat was far beyond anything the current generation of humans understood. A new holographic figure appeared beside Admiral Kang. This one was clearly an artificial intelligence with a sleek metallic appearance and glowing blue eyes. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of vast computational power and centuries of stored knowledge. "I am Admiral Iron Phoenix," it announced. "Artificial Intelligence Fleet Command and Strategic Operations. I have been monitoring Galactic communications for the past 72 hours and have compiled a threat assessment," Iron Phoenix gestured, and a three-dimensional star map appeared in the center of the room. Red zones marked areas where colonies and trading posts had gone silent over the past several months. The pattern was unmistakable, as the hostile force had been systematically working its way through the outer systems toward more populated areas. "The species designation vHFY appears to be accurate," Iron Phoenix continued. "They demonstrate complete resource consumption behavior with no evidence of communication attempts or negotiation protocols. Analysis indicates they view all other life forms as raw materials for expansion." Yoon-ji studied the star map with growing horror. "How many civilizations have they destroyed?" 37 confirmed extinct species," Iron Phoenix replied. "Estimated. Total population consumed exceeds 4 billion sentient beings. Current trajectory suggests they will reach coalition core worlds within 18 months. The implications of the AI's report settled over the room like a dark cloud. The vHFY were not just attacking isolated human colonies, but were systematically destroying every form of life they encountered. The attack on New Seoul was just the latest in a campaign of galactic extinction. Civilian Han Woo-jin had been frantically searching through historical records since the awakening began. "I found something," he announced as he pulled up an ancient document on his display screen. Project Sleeping Giant was designed specifically to counter extinction-level threats. The protocols were written by military strategists who had studied every possible scenario. What did they conclude? Daeho asked. Wu Jin read from the classified file with a voice full of grim understanding. Quote, if humanity ever faces an enemy that threatens complete extinction, then moral considerations become secondary to species survival. In such circumstances, all restrictions on weapon deployment and tactical responses are hereby suspended. End quote. Admiral Kang nodded approvingly. The vHFY consumption behavior qualifies as an extinction-level threat. All sleeping assets have been authorized to use maximum force without limitation. The sound of massive machinery operating at full capacity drifted up from the depths below as the shipyard worked to complete the rescue fleet. Through the observation windows, the colonists could see huge structures rising from the underground facility that dwarfed anything on the surface. The scale of the hidden installation was beginning to become apparent, and it was far larger than anyone had imagined. Captain Nam Ji-hoo appeared in the communications center wearing a military uniform that looked like it had been manufactured minutes earlier. He was tall and lean, with the confident bearing of someone who had commanded warships in actual combat. His presence added another layer of reality to what was happening. Captain Lee, he said with a respectful nod. I am Captain Nam Ji-hoo, formerly of the dreadnought Soul's Vengeance. I have been awakened to take command of the rescue fleet. Formerly, Daeho asked. The original Soul's Vengeance was decommissioned after the war, Nam replied. However, the automated shipyard is currently constructing an updated version with improved capabilities. Launch is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Elder Choi stepped forward to address the newly awakened captain. How many others have been brought out of preservation? Approximately 2,000 military personnel across all human systems, Nam answered. Enough to crew the initial response fleet and begin training colonial volunteers for expanded operations. The mention of training colonial volunteers sent a chill through the room. It implied that the current emergency was expected to expand into something much larger and longer-lasting than a simple rescue operation. Dr. Shinmi Kyung entered the communications center carrying what appeared to be a weapon that belonged in a museum. She was a small woman with intense eyes and the kind of focused energy that suggested she had spent her life working with dangerous technology. Weapons systems are coming online, she reported. The armory has been sealed for over 2 centuries, but everything is still functional. Some of these devices are probably illegal under current galactic law. Admiral Iron Phoenix responded with what might have been amusement. Current galactic law does not account for extinction-level threats, Dr. Shin. The vHFY consumption behavior negates all existing treaties and protocols. The AI was correct. The careful balance of galactic civilization depended on the assumption that all species would follow certain basic rules about warfare and territorial expansion. The vHFY had broken those rules so completely that the entire framework of interstellar law had become irrelevant. Sergeant Lim Young-soo appeared next, wearing combat armor that looked both ancient and futuristic at the same time. He carried weapons that seemed to pulse with their own internal energy, and his expression suggested he was eager to use them. Ground combat units are ready for deployment, he announced. We have enough equipment to outfit 5,000 Marines for extended operations. 5,000 Marines, Taemin repeated in disbelief. Where are you going to find 5,000 Marines? Lim smiled grimly. Every human colony has underground training facilities and automated recruitment protocols. Your peaceful farmers and engineers are about to discover they have skills they never knew they possessed. The transformation was accelerating as more military personnel emerged from cryogenic preservation and took control of the awakening war machine. The gentle civilization that the galaxy had known for 2 centuries was rapidly being replaced by something far more dangerous and efficient. Admiral Kang's hologram flickered as she received new data. Reconnaissance drones have reached the new Soul's location. The colony ship is still functional, but has lost approximately 30% of its hull to the vHFY consumption process. The rescue fleet that emerged from the depths beneath New Harmony defied every known law of physics and engineering. Captain Song Min-ho stood on the bridge of the newly constructed dreadnought Soul's Vengeance and watched as 47 other vessels arranged themselves in perfect formation around his flagship. Each ship was larger and more advanced than anything currently serving in the galactic fleet, and they had been built in less than 2 days. The Soul's vengeance itself was a monster of metal and energy that stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was composed of materials that seemed to absorb light, while its weapon systems generated power signatures that registered as small stars on sensor equipment. The bridge was a masterpiece of tactical efficiency with holographic displays that provided complete situational awareness of everything within a 50 light-year radius. "All vessels report ready for quantum tunnel deployment," announced Navigator O.J. Sung from his position at the helm. "Estimated travel time to target coordinates is 3 hours and 47 minutes. Captain Song nodded and opened a channel to Admiral Iron Phoenix, who was coordinating the operation from the underground command center. "Admiral, this is Soul's Vengeance reporting fleet ready for departure," confirmed Captain Song. Came the reply. "Long-range reconnaissance indicates the new Soul has approximately 6 hours of structural integrity remaining. You are authorized to engage hostile forces with maximum prejudice." The phrase maximum prejudice carried weight that made everyone on the bridge pause for a moment. It was an old military term that meant complete destruction of enemy forces, without consideration for surrender or negotiation. The vHFYs had proven they were incapable of communication, so the only response was total elimination. Major Bei Su-jin entered the bridge wearing combat armor that seemed to be more machine than protective gear. She commanded the Special Forces units that would be responsible for boarding operations if any survived the initial assault. Her weapons were integrated into the armor itself and could apparently function in any environment, including the vacuum of space. "Marines are ready for deployment," she reported. "We have enough firepower aboard this fleet to sterilize entire star systems if necessary." Captain Song appreciated her confidence, but hoped it would not come to that. The goal was to rescue the 50,000 civilians aboard New Soul and eliminate the immediate threat. However, the nature of the vHFYs meant that any survivors would likely continue their consumption behavior elsewhere in the galaxy. Fleet deployment commencing. O announced as the quantum tunnel drives engaged, entering hyperspace in 3-2-1 mark. The stars outside disappeared as the rescue fleet entered a realm of swirling energy that existed between normal space and pure possibility. The quantum tunnel technology allowed them to traverse vast distances by temporarily existing in multiple locations simultaneously until they collapsed back into a single reality at their destination. It was technology that should not have been possible, but somehow worked perfectly. During the journey, Captain Song reviewed intelligence reports about the vHFYs that had been compiled by Admiral Iron Phoenix. The enemy ships were organic constructs that grew rather than being manufactured. They consumed raw materials, including other spacecraft, and converted them into additional vessels or biological mass. No vHFY individual had ever been captured or studied, but their behavior suggested a hive mind focused entirely on expansion and consumption. Captain called Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hae-won from the communications station. "We're receiving updated transmissions from New Soul. The situation is deteriorating rapidly." The main display showed a visual feed from the colony ship, and the scene was horrifying. Massive organic vessels with writhing tentacles were attached to the hull, like parasites feeding on a host. Parts of the New Soul were already missing, as the vHFY ships literally consumed the metal and converted it into biological mass for their own growth. "How many hostile vessels?" Captain Song asked. "Estimated 43 vHFY ships of various sizes," replied the tactical officer. "The largest appears to be approximately 800 meters in length. They seem to be feeding on the New Soul in shifts to maximize resource extraction." Captain Song studied the tactical display and began formulating his attack plan. The vHFYs were focused entirely on consumption and showed no awareness that a rescue fleet was approaching. Their complete lack of military organization would be their downfall. "Fleet will deploy in Diamond Formation Alpha," he announced. "Heavy cruisers will engage the larger vHFY vessels while escort ships eliminate the smaller parasites. Priority is preservation of the New Soul and evacuation of civilians." The quantum tunnel voyage ended exactly on schedule as the rescue fleet materialized in normal space just outside the engagement zone. The vHFYs were so focused on their feeding that they did not immediately react to the arrival of 48 heavily armed human warships. "All vessels, this is Soul's vengeance," Captain Song broadcast on the fleet frequency. Execute Diamond Formation Alpha. Weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten human civilians. The response was immediate and devastating. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had been designed during humanity's darkest period and then improved by 2 centuries of automated research and development. Energy beams that could slice through planetary crusts struck the organic vHFY ships, while projectile weapons fired rounds that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The largest vHFY vessel was struck by concentrated fire from 6 heavy cruisers and simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion or debris field as the creature was converted into component atoms by weapons that manipulated matter at the quantum level. The smaller parasites attached to New Soul tried to detach and flee, but were systematically eliminated by escort vessels with surgical precision. "Hostile fleet is completely destroyed," reported the tactical officer. "No survivors detected. New Soul is secure." The entire engagement had lasted less than 4 minutes. 43 vHFY ships that had been consuming a human colony ship for hours were eliminated so quickly and efficiently that the organic creatures never had time to mount any kind of defense or response. Captain Song opened a channel to the New Soul. "Colony ship New Soul, this is the rescue fleet's Soul's vengeance. Prepare for emergency evacuation and medical assistance. You are safe now." The response came immediately and was filled with disbelief and gratitude. "Soul's vengeance, this is Captain Kim of New Soul. Thank you, we thought we were all going to die. How did you get here so fast?" "That's classified, Captain Kim," Song replied. "Prepare your people for transfer to our medical facilities. We're going to get you home." The evacuation proceeded with mechanical efficiency as the rescue fleet deployed. Specialized ships designed for rapid civilian transport. Medical teams began treating the wounded while engineers assessed the damage to the colony ship. The New Soul had lost nearly 40% of its hull, but the remaining structure was stable enough for temporary habitation. Major Bay and her Marines boarded the colony ship to provide security and assistance with the evacuation. What they found inside was evidence of the vHFY consumption process that was both fascinating and horrifying. The organic attackers had not simply eaten parts of the ship, but had somehow converted human technology into biological components for their own use. "The vHFYs were incorporating our computer systems into their nervous networks," Bay reported from inside the damaged vessel. "They weren't just consuming raw materials, but were stealing our technology and making it part of themselves. The implications were staggering. The vHFYs were not just destroyers, but were actually learning from every civilization they consumed. Each species they eliminated made them more dangerous and more adaptable. They represented an evolutionary threat that grew stronger with every victory." Admiral Iron Phoenix's voice filled the communication channels with new intelligence. "Analysis of vHFY remains indicates they retain genetic and technological information from previously consumed species. These organisms are a composite threat that incorporates the strengths of 37 different civilizations." Captain Song felt a chill as he understood what the AI was telling them. The creatures they had just destroyed were using weapons and techniques stolen from dozens of other species that no longer existed. Every battle made the vHFY more dangerous as they absorbed new knowledge and capabilities. "Admiral, what is the status of the main vHFY fleet?" he asked. "Long-range sensors detect approximately 800 vessels moving toward Coalition space," Iron Phoenix replied. "Estimated arrival at outer colonies is 6 months. Projected threat level is extinction class for all organic life in this galactic sector." The rescue of New Soul had been successful, but it was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. The vHFY's main fleet was 10 times larger than the force they had just eliminated and was heading directly toward the heart of galactic civilization. Every species in the coalition was in mortal danger, and most of them did not even know it yet. "Fleet prepare for return to base," Captain Song announced. "We have civilians to evacuate and a war to prepare for." President Moon Hye-jin stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council and faced questions that would determine the future of all organic life in the galaxy. The rescue of colony ship New Soul had sent shockwaves through every member species as they struggled to understand how humans had accomplished something that seemed impossible. Representatives from 47 different civilizations filled the chamber, and their expressions ranged from awe to fear to outright suspicion. President Moon spoke the Zalarian delegate with his characteristic whistle-song voice. Your rescue fleet traveled 900 light-years and eliminated a superior enemy force in less than 4 minutes. The Coalition Science Council states, this should not be possible with any known technology. Ambassador Ryu Junseo sat beside President Moon and monitored the diplomatic undercurrents in the chamber. Many species were clearly grateful that humans had saved the new soul, but others were beginning to question whether humanity itself might represent a threat to galactic stability. The demonstration of overwhelming military capability had reminded everyone that humans were still largely unknown quantities, despite 2 centuries of peaceful coexistence. The technology exists because it was developed during our war period, President Moon replied carefully. It has been dormant for over 200 years until the emergency protocols were triggered by the distress call. The Morgani delegate rose to speak, and his silver skin seemed to shimmer with anxiety. What other capabilities do humans possess that the Coalition does not know about? How many more sleeping giants are hidden beneath your peaceful colonies? Before President Moon could respond, the chamber's main display screen activated to show Admiral Iron Phoenix appearing as a holographic projection. The artificial intelligence had requested permission to address the Coalition directly, and his presence added another layer of complexity to an already tense situation. Honorable delegates. Iron Phoenix began with mechanical precision. I am Admiral Iron Phoenix, Human Fleet Command and Strategic Operations. I have monitored galactic communications for the past 96 hours and have compiled intelligence regarding the vHFY threat that requires immediate attention. The chamber fell silent as delegates realized they were speaking to an AI with capabilities that far exceeded their own computer systems. Iron Phoenix gestured, and a 3-dimensional star map appeared showing the movement patterns of the main vHFY fleet. Current intelligence indicates 837 vHFY vessels approaching Coalition space along Vector 779, the AI continued. Projected arrival at outer colonies is 168 days. Coalition military assets are insufficient to mount effective resistance against this force. General An Chang-wook entered the chamber wearing a uniform that marked him as Supreme Commander of Human Military Forces. His presence signaled that humanity was taking the situation seriously and was prepared to offer more than just diplomatic cooperation. The human government has authorized full military deployment, General An announced. We are prepared to intercept and eliminate the vHFY threat before it reaches Coalition territory. The Andorian representative stood up with clear alarm in his multifaceted eyes. General An, what do you mean by full military deployment? How large is the human fleet? General An exchanged glances with President Moon before responding. Current production schedules call for completion of the primary battle fleet within 60 days. Fleet composition will include 500 heavy cruisers, 2,000 escort vessels, and appropriate support craft. The numbers hit the chamber like a physical blow. The entire Coalition fleet consisted of approximately 300 vessels of all types accumulated over centuries of cooperative shipbuilding. Humans were proposing to build a fleet nearly 10 times larger in 2 months, using technology that the Coalition did not understand. Elder Choi entered the chamber moving slowly, but with the dignity of someone who had seen galactic civilization at its worst and best. Her presence reminded everyone that she was one of the few beings alive who remembered what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. Honorable delegates, she said in a voice that carried clearly through the chamber. The vHFY represent an extinction-level threat to all organic life. They do not negotiate and they do not leave survivors. Every species they encounter is completely consumed and converted into resources for expansion. The Trilaxian delegate spoke with the multiple voices that characterized his species' communication method. Elder Choi, we understand the threat, but we must also consider the implications of human military expansion. The fleet you propose would be capable of conquering the entire galaxy. Elder Choi nodded slowly. Yes, it would. And that is exactly why we built the safeguards that kept it dormant. For 2 centuries, humans learned long ago that the capacity for overwhelming violence must be balanced by the wisdom to know when not to use it. Admiral Iron Phoenix interrupted with new intelligence that changed the entire dynamic of the discussion. Long range, Reconnaissance has detected vHFY advance forces engaging the Kepler defense station. Coalition forces are offering resistance, but projected survival time is 14 hours. The Kepler defense station protected one of the most important trade routes in coalition space and housed over 2 million civilians from dozens of different species. If it fell, the vHFY would have a clear path to the heart of galactic civilization, and the economic disruption alone would cause massive suffering. How long would it take for coalition forces to mount a relief operation? President Moon asked. The coalition military coordinator checked his data systems before responding. Minimum assembly time for available fleet assets is 72 hours. Travel time to Kepler Station is an additional 48 hours. 120 hours. Total, General On calculated. The station will have been consumed for over 4 days by the time coalition forces arrive. Admiral Iron Phoenix offered an alternative. Human rapid response units can reach Kepler Station in 18 hours. Recommended force deployment is 12. Heavy cruisers with full escort complement. The chamber erupted in confused conversations as delegates tried to understand how humans could respond so much faster than the coalition's own forces. The technology gap was becoming more apparent with each revelation, and many species were beginning to realize that they had fundamentally misunderstood humanity's true capabilities. President Moon called for order and addressed the chamber directly. The human government offers to deploy forces immediately to defend Kepler Station. We ask for nothing in return except the understanding that we are acting to preserve the lives of coalition civilians. The vote was swift and unanimous. Every delegate understood that they had no choice but to accept human assistance regardless of their concerns about long-term implications. The immediate threat of vHFY consumption outweighed any theoretical fears about human military expansion. The battle for Kepler Station occurred exactly as Admiral Iron Phoenix had predicted. Human forces arrived 18 hours after deployment and found the station under assault by 63 vHFY vessels of various sizes. The organic ships had already consumed 2 of the station's outer sections and were working their way toward the civilian habitation areas. Captain Nam Ji-Hoo commanded the relief force from the bridge of Soul's Vengeance and coordinated the attack with the same precision that had characterized the new Soul rescue. Human weapons designed to manipulate matter at the quantum level proved devastatingly effective against organic technology, and the vHFY fleet was eliminated within minutes. Kepler Station. This is Soul's Vengeance, Captain Nam broadcast. The hostile fleet has been neutralized. Prepare for damage assessment and medical assistance. The response from the station commander was filled with gratitude and disbelief. Soul's Vengeance. This is Commander Telvar of Kepler Station. 2 million beings owe you their lives. How did you destroy so many ships so quickly? Superior firepower and better tactics, Commander, came the reply. Human military doctrine emphasizes overwhelming response to extinction-level threats. The successful defense of Kepler Station sent another wave of shock through the galactic community. Humans had now demonstrated twice that they could deploy forces faster and fight more effectively than anyone had thought possible. The sleeping giants were not just awake, but were proving to be far more dangerous than the galaxy had imagined. During humanity's peaceful period, over the following weeks, human shipyards across 17 star systems worked at maximum capacity to build the fleet that would face the main vHFY invasion force. Each day brought reports of new vessels being completed and deployed, while advanced AI systems coordinated logistics on a scale that defied understanding. The final confrontation occurred in the empty space between star systems, where the vHFY main fleet encountered a human battle group that had been waiting in perfect formation. 837 organic ships faced 500 human vessels in what would become known as the Battle of Final Consumption. Admiral Iron Phoenix commanded the human fleet from a mobile command platform that existed partially outside normal space. The AI had calculated the optimal deployment pattern for maximum efficiency and minimum risk to human forces.